actual working day. So while we want to start off in a circle because it's really important that to us that everybody is present in the room by speaking and at least introducing themselves, we hope that you'll make yourself comfortable in the room as the day goes on. And, you know, if working behind a table is what you need to do, if you want to move out into a different space, then all of that is fine. We'll just get everybody together here, periodically for freshest thinking rounds, but we'll explain all that to you, and then at the end. So do make the space your own. I think often on training days, we sort of come, we enjoy, we go away, and you do a bit of processing on the way home, don't you? But you don't necessarily get to the bottom of what it is that you learned. You're not really grabbing hold of what you need to do with that learning. So today is very much about being able to do that. Is the start of a process. And this day is not a one-off. It's the only day, but it's not a standalone because it's part of a blended learning program that may or may not be like anything you've done before. We're not going to funnel you onto a Moodle at the end of today and force you to do some planned group activities. It's more about giving you, and I love this word, a smorgasbord of different online opportunities to be able to continue to deepen your thinking and your learning from today and to take it into your practice, because this is what it's all about. Most of you, well, all of you will be doing fantastic work. Who's from one of the mental health pilots here? Is that most people, but not everybody? So I work with Caroline at Northern College, so I know a little bit about the work that you're doing. And it's very much, isn't it, you're focused on students, you're focused on learners, you're focused on doing things for other people, helping other people, and this really is about helping us all to develop workforces and also ourselves as leaders, but perhaps in a non-traditional sense in some cases. So it's got to be practical. The online element might terrify some of you. I'm quite heartened to see how many people have got, you know, devices with them, so that's really great. I'm seen ironically as some sort of digital pioneer. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was always getting done for not using ICT in the classroom on my teaching observations because I wasn't that keen on PowerPoint. So it's been a bit of a turnaround, but I'm no techie. And so I'm learning and stumbling today, and the challenges of working between a Mac and a PC have completely absorbed my thinking since 9 o'clock this morning, to the point where I think I've not said hello to half the people in the room yet. So I'm with you, and I'm also here to support you. And over lunchtime, you know, we're going to be available if there's anything you want to check out. If you want to get on Twitter, for example, Carl is going to be tweeting during the day. I'm sure Katina will be. I will when I get a minute. This work needs to change education, doesn't it? It really needs to change the way that we do things. So unless we get out there with positive messages from the day, it's going to have, you know, its impact is going to be limited. It's a philosophy of communication. It's a way of being in the world, and it's a way in which we work at Northern College, increasingly, I think, across the projects of the college. Nancy Klein is the founder of the Time to Think organisation, and I trained with her. And what she did was, she's always maintained in 40, 50 years of this work that it's not just another model, that she has, as a coach, as a teacher, observed the way in which the brain seems to progress, it seems to break through, it seems to move on in its thinking. And that's what she moulded into the processes of the thinking environment. And what's really interesting is that in the last 10, 15 years, neuroscience is supporting those observations. So we're starting to know quite a bit now about the plasticity of the brain. We were on some training together, weren't we, Sarah? And hearing a bit about this fascinating stuff, and how actually, if we modify, transform the way that we think intentionally in some ways, the brain actually follows that route. And that's how learning happens. Learning happens because we learn something, but then we do something with it, and the brain actually shifts. There's now, you know, scientific brain scans to show, which is amazing stuff, and quite a bit of foresight on the thought of Nancy, on the part of Nancy 40 years ago. I'll take you through a few of the key principles of the thinking environment, and the idea is that today is about learning and processing and reflecting on lots of new stuff, but in the environment of a thinking environment, which hopefully will make the day easeful for you and won't feel like, you know, that sort of one series of activities after the other, bang, 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 bang. And then at the end of the day, like, oh, what was that about? So, nobody's present in a room until they've spoken. A thinking round is one of the very basic building blocks, one of the applications of a thinking environment. We've done some of this work together, haven't we, Sarah?
Yeah.
In a thinking environment, the big rule, I guess, is that there's no interruptions, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. But, you know, in the cut and thrust of everyday life, even those of us who think we're really good listeners can be very interrupted, and I'm totally putting my hands up here, especially when I get a bit overexcited. So the first rule is absolutely no interruptions. It is around, it'll feel like creeping death if you're a bit nervous. There's no way of it not doing that except doing it, and then we all relax a little bit and feel a bit better, I think. It isn't circle time in schools, but what we do have throughout the room are hopefully sort of nice things, flowers, images, pictures, to help stimulate your thinking. And if you're getting a bit stuck for thinking at any point, just grab something, you know, have a little think about it. Whoever wants to speak first speaks in response to a question. It's important that the opening question is a positive one because it sets the tone for the day. And no matter how grumpy you're feeling on the way in, couldn't get out of my street because of the cement mixer this morning, so I was very grumpy when I arrived late. It doesn't matter, you know, the positive question does bring a little bit of positive energy into the room. When you're speaking, nobody will interrupt. And what I ask you to do, and it feels a bit weird and squirmy at first, is try and give your attention, as you're beautifully doing with me, to the person who is speaking. Try and keep your eyes on their eyes. They can look wherever they want, so it's not intense. Just try and give them that attention. Because one of the things that neuroscience is telling us is that the brain does its best thinking, A, when it knows it's not going to be interrupted, and B, in the presence of that generative attention. And I don't know if you've got kids, but I've got a boy who's 19 now. And growing up, I learned to totally see, you know, when he wasn't really listening, because he looks like he's listening, but you can see he's listening to respond. And I think that's what we do a lot. We listen to be able to just, or to wait for a space to interrupt and jump in. Try and just sit back from your thoughts and listen. Whoever's speaking can talk for as long as they want. In the opening round, when you're just together with a group of people for the first time, what happens is some people do let their mouths run on a bit, and then you feel a bit of a numpty, and you sort of shut yourself up. So it only tends to happen once, and this stuff is important because it creates cultures of listening. As a one-off, the first time always feels a bit awkward. So talk for as long as you want, but some people might want a wee before you finish. So, you know, I'm asking you to share responsibility for keeping relatively succinct. And then it passes to the person, let's say on your right this time, we'll go this way round, and they can speak or they can pass. But please don't pass in this first round. It's an easy question, and also we want to know your name. And we don't want to not know your name all day. So if you only speak once today, please speak in this round. So the question is, what does it feel like when you're on top of your game? Yeah, so answer that in any way you want. Worky answer, home answer, sport answer, whatever you want to do. But please, first of all, say your name. First names are fine, but if you want to say a bit more about yourself to introduce yourself, that's really cool. So, thanks for joining, Katina. Who wants to start? And we'll go this way around.